RSU TV presents the Cherokee Nation's Principal Chief Forum.
Hello everyone, good evening. I'm Royal Aills, General Manager of RSU Public TV, and you are watching RSU TV's Cherokee Nation Principals Chiefs Forum tonight. I also want to welcome all of our viewers across Facebook as we do this live on YouTube, KJRH's website, and RSU TV's website as well, and the Cherokee Pheonix's website, streaming live. Events like tonight's forum are just one way RSU TV fulfills its public service commitment to the viewers of Northeast Oklahoma. There are 3 candidates participating in tonight's forum. They are on the screen, as you see the 3-shot, they are from screen left, Chuck Hoskin Jr., Dick Lay in the center, and David Walkingstick on the right. The panel tonight asking the questions are Graham Lee Brewer on your left, contributing editor for the Tribal Affairs and High Country News, and on the right, Brandon Scott, executive editor of the Cherokee Pheonix. This is a forum, not a debate. We're here to get the answers. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, 2 minutes for closing statements, and 90 seconds, minute and a half for each question. They do not have to use all of their time if they wish. That's up to them. Whether it's a congressional, mayoral, or statewide race, all of our forums and debates, RSTV conducts everything easily. We want everyone to be professional as they answer their questions so we can get our job done to inform the public. And to our audience in the studio tonight, we do have a small audience. We want to welcome them, but we're asking them that they remain quiet throughout the forum. So let's get started. Our first question tonight begins with Graham on our left asking the first, let's start with our opening statement. I'm getting fluttered. So let's just start with our opening statement, and that comes from Mr. Hoskin Jr.
Thank you, Roy. OCO, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. I want to thank Rogers State University for hosting this important forum. I want to thank the Cherokee citizens who are watching here in the studio across the 14 counties and even across the country. I certainly want to thank my family for being with me through this campaign. My wife here in the studio, January, watching the debate. My children, Jazzy and Tristan, watching at home. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a critical time for the Cherokee Nation, and it's a critical election. The next chief of the Cherokee Nation needs to be prepared to show leadership on a range of issues. Those issues include health care, making our health care system even better than it is today, working on economic development, making more strides to save our language and to preserve our culture, to teach our history, making sure every Cherokee gets a chance to earn a living through job training, through education, so that we can have strong communities. The next chief needs to be prepared to lead, and I am prepared to lead. I have the experience that it takes to lead the Cherokee Nation. I have the vision to move us forward. I'm proud of my record of service to the Cherokee people. I've served as the framer of our Constitution. I served on the Council of the Cherokee Nation. In the last 5 years, I served as Secretary of State. I'm proud of the milestones that we reached during my time in public service. I'm looking forward to serving as chief. I'm also proud that I am a father and a husband raising a Cherokee family. I think there's something about raising a family that uniquely qualifies a person for leadership. Families go through struggles, families pull together, families think generations ahead. The Cherokee people deserve a chief that will fix the problems we have now, but also keep an eye on future generations. And that's what I'll do for the Cherokee people. Widow.
Mr. Lay.
And thank you, Royal, and thanks to RSU for putting this forum on. They've been doing it for some time now, and it's really a nice thing. I'd like to, first of all, thank my family for bearing with me during this campaign. You can't do anything without your family. You just can't. And my wife, Phyllis, who is also a Cherokee citizen, and I raised a Cherokee son, and we're helping to raise a Cherokee grandson, and that continues on, and hopefully that will continue on as time goes by. And I'd like to tell you that I'm running for Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation. My name is Dick Lay. Remember that on your ballot, and I appreciate your vote. And I have served in several capacities with Cherokee. the first time during the 1999 Constitutional Convention. We added term limits to our Constitution, and that's one reason I'm terming out this time. I think from time to time you need other folks to come in and serve. You just can't sit there with one person in office forever. And so we were successful to do that. I've been successful in forming coalitions while on the council. We formed a coalition to expand and upgrade the satellite healthcare system, starting with 2 or 3 of us and gaining ground until we had a majority of council. And now you see new clinics in Oshaleta, Jay, Salisaw, and Stillwell. And so it's been a good relationship. And so it's something I'd like to continue my service to the Cherokee people for. Thank you.
Mr. Walkingstick.
Thank you, Roy. I'd like to thank Rogers State University for putting this on, and it's been something I've watched throughout the years. But again, my name's David Walkingstick. I'm running for Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation. I've been in the heart of Cherokee Nation in Tahlequah, Oklahoma for the last 38 years. It's been an honor to be able to serve our Cherokee people in a capacity as a Cherokee Nation tribal councilman for the last 8 years. Also chairman of education as well. But again, this is a crucial time in the Cherokee Nation, and never wanted to run for chief, never wanted to be chief as a young man, but as the elders in my community began to talk about the struggles and the problems we have in the Cherokee Nation, that's what led me to run. And after many prayers and entertaining the idea of running for chief in my mind and heart, I came out of my field with a lot of peace about running for Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation. And this is a calling, and this is a calling for light to drown out the darkness in the Cherokee Nation. You know, the last 8 years been on the tribal council, we've seen some good things take place. But you know, the thing about integrity, it's not about what direction you're going in, but it's how you get there. And as Chief of the Cherokee Nation, I'll have an honest government that has ethics and that will bring accessible health care to our Cherokee people, and that will take care of our elders and preserve our language. And those are things that's important to me as a Cherokee tribal citizen and as well as a Chief of the Cherokee Nation. But I hope the Cherokees that are watching out there, hope you guys will see that I am the people's chief, and I am in the grassroots with you guys, and I'm pushing for you guys all the time. We're done.
All right, gentlemen. We're going to get started with our first round of questions. The first one will start with Graham Brewer, and he will start the first round. Go ahead, Graham. Or I'm sorry, Brandon Scott will start it.
Campaign finance law is always at the forefront of any election, whether it be national or tribal. Do you believe as candidates that the federal decision Citizens United should apply to tribal nations, and why or why not?
Mr. Lay, you're the first to answer the question.
And thank you. And election reform has been a big issue for years in the Cherokee Nation. Every time we have an election, we go back and we change a few things that maybe didn't go just quite right, and we need to do it again after this one. In 2014 and 2016, several of us on the council looked at election reform, and we were, quite frankly, going to be outvoted on that election reform. And so it's, when you don't want to disenfranchise voters, you can't do that, and you don't want to repress citizens from voting anywhere. So you have to be very careful how you do election reform. And we just haven't figured it out yet. I see some things going on even in this election that I don't really agree with, and I decided not to go down those roads of LLCs and other issues like that. And I'm just running a straight, old-style, grassroots campaign addressing to the voters how I want to lead the nation with an open, transparent government.
Mr. Walkingstick, you now have the floor for 90 seconds.
All right, thank you. First, with the Citizens United, as tribal council members, we take an oath to not only uphold our Cherokee Nation Constitution, but to uphold the United States Constitution. And, that's something that we take serious in the Cherokee Nation. And but unfortunately, we've allowed Washington politics into the Cherokee Nation, where we have partisan politics in our tribe. And it's not necessarily the best course of business when you cater to one side. It's not good business, especially when you're going to deal with gaming compacts and other compacts with not only the state, but the United States. But, Councilman Lay said, we need election reform in a desperate way in the Cherokee Nation. We're kind of behind the ball. If we're going to allow Washington politics in the Cherokee Nation, we need to have election reform so we can regulate those type of things that's going on with super PACs, LLCs, whatever it is. But unfortunately, it's taken place. And, in all the mudslinging that has taken place in the Cherokee Nation, it's really brought a shame and disgrace to the Cherokee Nation. And it's not the Cherokee way. My elders taught us about respect. And when I become chief for the Cherokee Nation, I'm gonna lead all people, not separate groups or special interest groups, but we do need election reform. We're done.
Mr. Hoskin Jr.
Thank you. The Citizens United decision is bad for American democracy because it lets unlimited money into politics. I think it's hurting our democracy. I think it's bad for the Cherokee democracy. I was on the council when we amended our election laws. One thing has been stable throughout modern Cherokee elections, is which we've required full disclosure from candidates. Full disclosure. Everything should be out in the open. Citizens United would take us down the direction of dark money, of unregulated money, unregulated amounts of money from sources we couldn't even begin to know about. This is about protecting the Cherokee people. The Cherokee people deserve to know who's donating in elections. They deserve to know what's being spent in election. They deserve transparency. Unfortunately, we've had some of this happen in this election, as the other two candidates have acknowledged. My opponent, Councilman Walkingstick, has benefited from this unregulated money that no one knows where it comes from. It's hurting Cherokee democracy. It's contrary to Cherokee law. And as chief of the Cherokee Nation, I'll protect Cherokee law, and I'll insist that there be full disclosure. Transparency is good for the Cherokee government. We need to keep it in the Cherokee Nation, and we need to protect the Cherokee public interest in making sure people know what's going on in our elections.
All right, let me remind everyone we're going to keep this professional, so let's make sure that we're not throwing anything around. So let's keep it. You have it in your next question. You have 90 seconds. You can use that time for part of your rebuttal if you like. So the next question comes from Graham from High Country News. Ask the question. You're going to receive this question first, and then you can rebut, but you got to do it within your 90 seconds. Okay? So go ahead, Graham.
The Supreme Court is about to hear arguably the most important Indian country case in modern history. If the court upholds the 10th Circuit's decision in the Muskogee Creek Nation's Murphy case and returns additional jurisdictions as well as reservation status to the tribe, would you, as a leader of a fellow civilized tribe, push for the Cherokee Nation to make a similar claim? And in addition, what outcomes, good and bad, would such a favorable decision have in the Cherokee Nation?
Go ahead.
Thank you. The Murphy case is a very complex suit going on right now that talks about our sovereignty within the Cherokee Nation. It's either going to increase our sovereignty or take away our sovereignty. And, I'm never an advocate to take away sovereignty. And I believe as a Cherokee Nation, we need to be advocating for the Murphy case so that we can have jurisdiction and to punish criminals within our jurisdiction. If you look at some of the reservations where some outsiders are going into reservations and raping our Indian women, that's something that we need to take very seriously. And as a chief of the Cherokee Nation, we need to lobby very hard and advocate so we have those rights within the Cherokee Nation. But as chief of the Cherokee Nation, taxation comes into play with the Murphy case. If they rule that way, and that's something that we need to prepare for, because we got to get law enforcement. We got to have our own judiciary. Our branches need to increase, and We need to have more courthouses and so forth. But a rebuttal to Mr. Hoskins over here. You know, he talks about transparency. You know, and dark money is hidden in his Cherokee Future LLC, where he spent over $600,000 to his dad's home address. So that's my rebuttal to that. Thank you, Roy.
All right. Next answer comes from Mr. Hoskins.
Well, the Murphy case is the most important Indian law case in a generation, and as Chief of the Cherokee Nation, I absolutely would take the same position that the Creek Nation takes, which is that their reservation was never diminished. My position is the Cherokee Nation reservation was never diminished, and I think that's a position that's on the side of Cherokee sovereignty, and the Chief of the Cherokee Nation needs to stand for that, and so we would assert that same claim. We don't know how the Murphy case is going to be decided, but here's what we do know. When it's decided, however it's decided, we will need strong leadership. We'll need a chief that understands sovereignty, that has worked on the subject matter. We're going to be called upon to protect the Cherokee Nation's interests no matter what the decision is, because we're going to have to engage with the government of the United States. We're going to have to engage with the state of Oklahoma. We're going to have to protect our rights, and we're going to have to work out, in some cases, agreements so that we can protect the citizen's right, whether it's criminal jurisdiction or civil jurisdiction, but above all, we need a chief that's prepared to lead and understands these issues. I do understand these issues. I do want to say that Councilman Walkingstick is trying to distract with talks about LLCs. The bottom line is every penny that I've spent in this campaign has been transparent. If the Cherokee people want to go to the Election Commission, they can see everything that I've spent. They can see every penny that I've raised. The same's not true with respect to Councilman Walkingstick.
Mr. Lay, you have the last answer on this question.
Thank you. And kind of funny, I went to a forum and a debate broke out, I think, so it's interesting. The Murphy case is extremely important, and let me go back to what Wilma Mankiller told us once. Be careful when you go to court. You may or may not like the result. And so, yes, it may be a wonderful opportunity, but if it goes against the Creek Nation, then what happens? And whoever's going to be chief when that finally ends up being decided is going to have to be nimble and going to have to be able to draw the brightest and the best legal minds around him or her and know how to work their way through that system. This is not going to be easy. It could be an opportunity, and it could be a bucket full of problems. We don't know yet. When it's decided, then we'll know. And that's my answer. Thank you.
All right. We're going to move on to question number 3, and Brandon has that from the Cherokee Pheonix. Brandon?
Cherokee Nation recently received a grant earmarked to address the negative impacts related to opioid abuse. If elected, will you continue to support the Cherokee Nation's legal efforts against the prescription opioid industry?
That goes to Mr. Hoskins, Jr.
The opioid epidemic is one of the most important issues facing the Cherokee people, so I absolutely support holding the pharmaceutical companies accountable. Our Attorney General took them to task and actually made Cherokee Nation a leader in Indian country in addressing that. The grant that we received will help us combat the effects of that, but we have to do more at the Cherokee Nation. We have to make sure we take care of people who are affected by this. We need to make sure we provide rehabilitation opportunities. We need to make sure we take care of people who have this addiction, and not just treatment, but helping them get back onto a path in which they can take care of their families, earn a living, and get back to being productive Cherokee citizens. This is hitting home for so many of us. I don't know that there is a Cherokee citizen that is not affected by this. So we need a chief that can show leadership in this regard, but again, holding the drug companies accountable was the right thing to do, and I was proud because it was an assertion of our sovereignty and our strength, because we ought to be protecting the vulnerable people that are affected by the opioid epidemic.
Mr. Lay, you
Yes.
have the same question.
Yes, sir, and thank you. Well, I don't know, probably, I doubt that there's any family in the state of Oklahoma, or most any state, any Cherokee family who doesn't have a family member, cousin, something down the line that hasn't been affected by this issue, the opioids. And we must certainly continue to hold drug companies accountable. And when it comes to the point of our healthcare system, we need to work that behavioral health into the system even more than we have been. And it's going to cost us some money. And so we've got a little from the settlement. That's probably not enough. So we need to look at how we're going to do that going forward. And we're going to have to surround ourselves with the treasurer and the financial folks of the tribe and get an idea of how we go forward with that. The healthcare system has its own accounting unit. I don't know if people know that, but we've also got to dovetail in everybody on this issue because it's important. It's really harming our citizens, and we've got to deal with it. Thank you.
Mr. Walkingstick, same question to you, sir.
All right, thank you. The opioid epidemic is affecting many of our people, even our youth and all the way up to our elders. And I got many close friends and family that some of their lives have been taken from it. And so this is a very personal issue for me, but it's sad when you go into our rural areas and our kids and some of our adults, it's kind of a dead-end street for them, and a lot of our people are self-medicating. You know, the opioid epidemic did bring awareness to the issue. Not, you know, we try to sue our own court, which was good because it brought awareness nationwide about the opioid epidemic that's happening in Indian country. You know, we have many good people out there, but, you know, unfortunately when they get the chemicals in their body, they start making bad, poor decisions. But, you know, as chief of the Cherokee Nation, I think it's important that we put behavioral health clinics all throughout the 14 county, along with some strong counselors to help out with our youth and our people. And because we can't wait for the state to come in. We have to, Cherokee Nation, we need to act now, and so that we can have a healthier nation in the Cherokee Nation. So thank you. Okay. We're done.
Gentlemen, we're doing very well tonight, so it's going smoothly. Mr. Lay, you're getting the next question on a question about freedmen, and that will be asked by Mr. Graham.
Federal courts have decided, and the Cherokee courts and administration have accepted that the freedmen are legal Cherokee citizens with voting rights. As chief, would you continue the nation's support of the freedmen? Why or why not?
Well, and this issue has been decided, and in federal court and ours, it's the law, and I will abide by and enforce the law as chief, just like I'm doing now as counsel. That's my answer. Okay.
We'll move on to Mr. Walkingstick. Same question about the freedmen. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you. The freedmen is an interesting topic within Cherokee Nation. You know, we had a ruling from Judge Hogan here recently defining that the freedmen are citizens of the Cherokee Nation based off the Treaty of 1866, which is a treaty that we take very seriously. In 2007, you know, our council, actually wasn't our council, there was a constitutional referendum that went before the Cherokee people to be voted on to have a Cherokee by blood tribe and to be amended in our Constitution, and 77% of those people voted on that. And you know, and the Cherokee people's voice is one that I take serious. And when the Supreme Justice rendered down a decision on the Cherokee Nation, one is it was a sovereignty issue. It was a question that a tribe should be able to determine their own citizenship. And when our Attorney General stood down and didn't fight the ruling of the federal court, that not only watered down our sovereignty as a tribe, but the other 573 tribes across the United States. And the voice of the Cherokee people is one that I take very serious. And that's, you know, sometimes we gotta leave our opinion outside and do what's best and take the people's voice serious as a tribal councilman. But you know, it's moving forward. It's water under the bridge. It's now law of the land. So that's my answer. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Hoskin.
referred to Cherokee freedmen as. They're Cherokee citizens. I believe in equal protection under the law. I believed in it when I was one of the framers of our Constitution. I believe that it is the law of the land and that we ought to treat all citizens equally. You know, in 2007, I voted in that election, and I voted not to exclude the freedmen. It's not only that a federal judge handed down a decision, the Supreme Court of the Cherokee Nation also handed down a decision. And that decision was that freedmen were equal citizens. As Chief of the Cherokee Nation, I would support, protect, and defend that decision. And we can say that it's water under the bridge, but we have to look at our track record. When Councilman Walkingstick dug in his heels and opposed freedmen citizenship, I've supported it. I believe that we're a better nation, a stronger nation when we bring everyone together. And as Chief, I'll never forget that I represent every Cherokee citizen equally.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to move on to question number 5. And Mr. Walkingstick, you will get the first answer on this one. And this one will be asked by Brandon. Brandon?
Through the Indian Health Services funded joint venture and expansion of the Hastings Hospital, Cherokee Health will begin receiving nearly $100 million annually for improving health care. How do you believe that money should be utilized?
Well, it's not how I believe it should be utilized. It's going to be used for staffing and equipment. And, you know, the big topic in Cherokee Nation is accessible health care. And, you know, we've lost 140 doctors over the last 8 years, and which has led to increased waiting times in our clinics and has really decreased accessibility to our health care. And it's great that we built this 480,000 square foot facility for $200 million. It's great. But, you know, when you build bricks and mortar amongst the Cherokee Nation, it looks like we're very successful and we have a lot of wealth. But I think that we were a little premature, and I don't believe we're ready for this size of a building. One is because we don't have the doctors, we don't have the physicians or providers. We're supposed to hire 850 positions in this new clinic. And you know, it's going to be a big challenge on whoever the next chief is. But as you know, when I'm chief of Cherokee Nation, we're going to pay doctors what they're worth, and we're going to get nurse practitioners in, and we're going to value them so that we can have accessibility to health care, and also bring in urgent care into our rural areas. So if someone's having chest pains, they don't have to drive all the way in Tahlequah, they can go to Jay, you know. But chief of Cherokee Nation, I believe in accessible health care.
So let me ask a follow-up question, and each of you can answer this with an initial 10 seconds to add it onto your time. So 10 seconds, when you say that they're not prepared, are you, as chief, willing to extend out the opening of that facility to try to hire more doctors, to get to the numbers you're trying to get to that's in place now?
Yes, no doubt. We definitely need, we don't have the staff in place to staff that hospital. And so we do need to extend to be sure that we have adequate staffing.
Okay, Mr. Hoskin.
Well, the idea that we would extend the opening of a facility that we've nearly completed is a statement made by someone that doesn't understand how we got there. I was Secretary of State when we negotiated the joint venture, and I'm very proud to have been to Washington, D.C., to sit across the table from senators, to sit across the table from members of Congress, to sit across from the Indian Health Service and tell them the United States government is too far behind on health care in Indian country and the Cherokee Nation's not going to wait anymore. So we took the initiative to build the largest health care facility outpatient for Native Americans in the country with what we're building in Tahlequah. That's important. We told the federal government, we're not going to let you off the hook for operating dollars. And the agreement that we negotiated said that when we open the doors, the full amount of the $100 million plus per year that's coming into the Cherokee Nation would come to us for health care. We can immediately start using those dollars. It's stunning to me that any Cherokee leader who has paid attention would say we need to keep the doors locked on that new facility, because if you know what you're talking about, you'll know that if you keep the doors locked, you'll say no to the $100 million. That doesn't make any sense. We need to focus on hiring more doctors and nurses, and we can do that. We've got an opportunity to do that, but it won't happen automatically. We need leadership. We need to give our recruiters the tools they need. We need to pay doctors what they demand in the market, nurses the same way. We need to make sure we hire case managers. We need to make sure we hire patient advocates. We need to have a patient-centered focus in our health care. And to the Cherokee people, I would say you can't do any of that if you follow Councilman Walkingstick and keep the doors locked.
All right, we're going to move on to Mr. Lay to answer the same question, and you can address the follow-up that I gave.
Sure. And could I have the question again, please?
Stop the time for a second and go ahead and ask the question.
Through the Indian Health Services funded joint venture and expansion of the Hastings Hospital, Cherokee Health will begin receiving almost $100 million annually for improving health care. How do you believe that money should be utilized?
Mr. Lay.
Okay. Well, and let me maybe back up just a little bit. We're not building a hospital. We're building a clinic. It's 469,000 square foot clinic. We're going to go back and then rehab Hastings Hospital and turn it back into a hospital, a bed hospital, which it should have been all these years. And so it was doing double duty as a clinic and a hospital. And that just didn't work out very good. And so the administration and the council got together and said, let's see if we can do this. I do know that the former executive medical director that we now don't have had a lot to do with the IHS compact and agreement and the $100 million a year. We don't have that person now. And that kind of always struck me as being a little odd. And so am I going to delay the opening? Absolutely not. But there's a certain number of people who are going to walk over from the old Hastings to the new clinic, and then we'll add people as we can bring them on. And so the idea that the $100 million will come to us that day that we open, if that's what happens, and I've heard 2 or 3 different variations, but if that's what happens, then we're going to open that facility on time. And so also the recruitment of new docs, new nurse practitioners, new nurses, new top-end nurses is an important issue because we're kind of behind. We can't keep the docs we have now. And I don't know what the number is. I hear 2 numbers from these 2 guys. Right. And so I'm going to say that we've lost in the last 3 or 4 years over 100% of our doc numbers.
Okay, I've got to stop you there. You ran out of time. We're moving on to our 6th question of the evening, dealing with something that my family is very familiar with, chicken houses in northeast Oklahoma. And that's going to be asked by Mr. Graham.
Chicken runoff from the 800-plus poultry farms in Delaware and Adair counties has become a lingering problem for many within the Cherokee Nation. Milo's, a fresh brewed tea company, just broke ground in Owasso in part due to the water quality in the Spavinaw and Lake Uchi watersheds. How do you envision the Cherokee Nation's role in achieving a balance between economic opportunity and protection of quality of life and culturally important waters for both Cherokee residents and homeowners?
And Mr. Hoskin, you get the first question.
Well, appreciate the question. This is impacting a lot of our people, including those in Delaware and Adair County. And I've been to that area. I've seen the impact of the over-concentration of poultry houses on elders, on schools, on the land and the water. And it's something Cherokee Nation provided leadership on at the fall of 2018 while I was Secretary of State. What we said to the state of Oklahoma and the industry is that you have to stop building these chicken houses, and we reached an agreement. That's part of what makes me suited to be chief of the Cherokee Nation, is the ability to bring parties together that may be at odds to reach at least some solution. So we reached a moratorium. That is, we said stop with the chicken houses until we can study this problem. It's important because Cherokee Nation has a role to play, and I would have Cherokee Nation as the chief play a role in making sure water is protected, that we connect our people affected by this problem with rural water, that we assert our sovereignty, assert our legal rights under federal law to protect water quality. We can do that, and that we do what I've done as a private citizen, which is to write the Secretary of Agriculture, write the Secretary of Energy. I was just on the phone with the Secretary of Energy of the state of Oklahoma last week talking about the moratorium. This is an important issue. We need leadership on it. I was glad to be at the table to provide it, but we need to do more going forward. And here's the other thing. Just because these communities have already been impacted does not mean we can give up, does not mean we leave them behind. And as chief, I won't. I will be right there to direct resources to that community for water and to mitigate the damage that's been done.
Follow-up question. I'll give you each 10 seconds to add to your time on this. So do you see any type of moratorium on families, particularly Cherokee families who want to add on or build new houses on property within the watershed?
Well, I think we need to extend that moratorium because we don't know what it's doing, for example, to the water supply. We're in the middle of a federal study on the aquifers that supply water to all of us. And I believe that we've got to keep that moratorium in place until we find a solution. It's not a stop forever, it's a pause until we can be educated on the subject and get the data we need.
Mr. Lay, same question to you, sir.
Well, and if anybody drives out towards 412 and Delaware, Mays, and Adair County, they can see these huge chicken houses. I recall chicken houses that a lot of Cherokee citizens had that were rather small compared to what I see today. These things are as big as a battleship. And there's, 200, 300,000 chickens. And they're running off the well water. And they're, the residue has to go somewhere. Where does it go? And so I think the Cherokee Nation has and can still provide some leadership in that area. We have a lot of influence with our state senators and state reps. The reason they're coming to Oklahoma is the state laws are lax. And the reason they're coming to Oklahoma is because Arkansas and Kansas tightened their laws, and we didn't. We failed. And so we need to go talk to those groups and try to get this law centered up and back even with those two states, because if we don't, we're going to end up with all the chicken houses and they'll end up with all the money. And I don't have anything against chicken houses or chicken growers whatsoever. They're farmers in a fashion. And so, but I want to make sure that we take care of our water, we don't pollute, and we don't plop down next to our neighbors with a 300,000 chicken house. And that's it. Thank you.
That has happened. Mr. Walkingstick, same question to you, sir.
Thank you. I was out there when all the development began, and when the uproar with our Cherokee citizens being affected by this, and I heard their personal testimony of the chicken mites infesting their front lawns, and chicken feathers, and some of our elders getting emphysema from the air pollution, and then it's polluting our waterways. And hearing these testimonies, hearing about our elders having to leave their allotment lands because of their wells going dry. Those are things that started tugging on my heartstrings, and seeing this pollution come firsthand. There was a House bill that was introduced 2 years ago, and the Tribal Council, the Cherokee Nation, our lobbying firms, we had the opportunity to get in front of this. And there were some good, strong guidelines about setbacks with these chicken homes, and we didn't plan for it. And so now, the damage is here, and it's already done. But as Chief of Cherokee Nation, our citizens were looking for someone to come and help them out and bail them out legally, because they don't have the funds to go and get legal attorneys and so forth. And they were begging for the Cherokee Nation to come to their rescue. And we failed, we watched, but our leaders didn't come around until after the fact, and when the cameras were there. But I was there from the beginning, and I seen it firsthand. And as Chief of the Cherokee Nation, we will protect our water rights, because water is life. We're done.
All right, now we're going to move on to our seventh question. Gentlemen, we have passed our halfway mark, and things are going very, very well. So very good. So let's get on to our seventh question, dealing with Cherokee Nation businesses. And Brandon has that from the Cherokee Pheonix. Brandon?
Cherokee Nation businesses has become a vital revenue generator for the Cherokee Nation in much of north and eastern Oklahoma. What is the current status of diversification of C&B businesses, and what are your plans for greater diversification during your term if elected?
Mr. Lay has the answer for that one first up.
And Cherokee Nation businesses, let's set the stage here a little bit. Cherokee Nation businesses is in business because of the sovereignty of the Cherokee Nation tribe. Let's always remember that. I hear a lot of people say, well, it's just C&B money, let's spend that. It's actually the people's money. It's the Cherokee Nation's money. And so I'm proud of that fact. But C&B and C&E both have done well. They're prospering, and they're doing so because of our sovereignty allows them to be in business. And some of my problems with C&B and C&E is that they're able to give funding away up to a certain point, up to a certain maximum without running it through the tribe. And my views on that are, I think that I would like to see the funding come to the tribe. We'll allocate funding back to CMB that they tell us they need to operate on. And then we are able to then direct the funding that comes in either to savings and or serving our people. A lot of this money, we already do that with approximately 37% of that funding. And we bring it into the Gen Fund, we spend it on services for our people. And a lot of that goes to health care. And we're going to get ready to need more health care dollars real quick. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Walkingstick, the floor is yours for 90 seconds.
All right, thank you. Diversification at CMB, they're called government 8A contracts, that they have $1 billion of government 8A contracts, which profit 3 to 5%. But to say that they're generating $1 billion is a little misleading. And also, these jobs are not in the heart of the Cherokee Nation. These jobs are in 27 different states and 14 different countries. We need these government 8A contracts in the heart of Cherokee Nation, where there's high clusters of Cherokees that put people to work. And this is a great plan for diversification. But we need to get away from gaming. We've built casinos for the last 8 years since I've been on the tribal council. What happens when there's state-regulated gaming that takes place in Oklahoma and it starts competing with our gaming dollars? We need to start looking at diversification, getting into cow-calf operations, getting into real estate, flipping properties. But the best return on investment is investing into your people. Healthcare is the best diversification in the Cherokee Nation. Sponsoring our elders for Medicaid and Medicare for 65 years of age and older will bring millions of dollars of revenue into the Cherokee Nation, so we can have self-sufficient clinics all throughout the Cherokee Nation. But Scripture says where much is given, much is required, and God has given us a bunch here, Cherokee Nation. It's required of us to give back to the Cherokee people, especially through those CMB dividends. We're done.
I have a follow-up to that, and then Mr. Lay, you can get 10 seconds at the end to answer. But you're saying move a lot of the businesses out of other states back to Oklahoma?
Yes.
So you would reduce revenue?
No, that you would not reduce revenue. You would increase jobs.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Mr. Hoskins, you're up next.
Well, I'm very proud of Cherokee Nation businesses, their performance, and it starts with the workforce. We have such a talented workforce at Cherokee Nation businesses, from our gaming operations to all of our other businesses, and so that's where it starts. I'm also proud of the leadership. Every member of the board of directors of Cherokee Nation businesses is a Cherokee citizen with a heart for the Cherokee people, and that's really the secret to the success of Cherokee Nation businesses. Generates thousands of jobs. It generates so much in revenue, so much in the funds that go to programs for the Cherokee people to invest back in our communities, healthcare, elders, investing in education, infrastructure. If you look at the performance of Cherokee Nation businesses over the last 8 years, what you see is, in terms of diversification, 8 years ago, the diversified business unit was actually losing money. And over the last 8 years, we've increased that to the point where 40% of what Cherokee Nation businesses does is outside of gaming. And it is true, a lot of that is federal contracts. We have a business presence in 47 states, but here's what folks need to know. That actually creates jobs in the 14 counties to support those contracts. So Councilman Walkingstick's stunning suggestion that we eliminate those jobs and somehow start over in the 14 counties, I think, is absurd. What I would do is focus on the 14 counties to add on top of what we do. I think we need to focus on the rural communities. I think we can create jobs there. I think we can leverage the expertise we have to do things in healthcare, to do things in construction, and do things in technology right here in the 14 counties to create jobs.
Mr. Lay, I'm going to give you an extra 10 seconds since I interrupted and asked the follow-up question.
Okay. And what was the follow-up again?
So if you're going to bring back jobs from out of state, are you cutting revenue?
Okay.
That was my follow-up question.
Well, and I didn't say I was going to bring jobs back from out of state. I will say this: the 42% of revenue from the diversified business side is not. You need to understand that sometimes that's only a 2% profit, from 2 to 14%. So the revenue sounds good, but the profit margin is not anywhere near what we make in our gaming.
All right. Let's move on to our next question dealing with at-large citizens. And Graham, you have that question.
At-large Cherokees, that is, tribal citizens who live outside the tribe's 14-county district in northeast Oklahoma, now represent a slight majority of the tribe's population. What would you do as chief to enable at-large citizens to be more engaged with the tribe in addition to the cultural events the nation already holds in at-large areas?
That will go to Mr. Walkingstick.
Well, first, many of our at-large citizens, I feel for them. I remember being a young Cherokee away from home and getting homesick and ready to come back home to the Cherokee Nation. And when I go travel these at-large meetings, I see these Cherokees who are scattered out throughout the Cherokee Nation and throughout the United States. And there is some homesickness, but the unity and the sense of family when they all get together is overwhelming. Increasing scholarships for at-large citizens has to happen. In the last year, we've dropped our at-large scholarships from $50,000 to $10,000. And as Chief of the Cherokee Nation, we'll increase scholarships to at-large citizens. Also, to get more accessibility for voting. Right now, there's a lot of paperwork that has to go through, but they need to be able to vote through an online process to make it more accessible for them to vote. But as Mr. Hoskin said on the former question, not everybody wants to work in a casino. And, I never said anything about eliminating jobs. I talked about bringing government 8A contracts into the heart of the Cherokee Nation. And I'd be bragging, too, if CMB funded my campaign. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Mr. Hoskins, you have the floor for 90 seconds.
Certainly. I think the question was about at-large. Councilman Walkingstick mentioned again CNB. Look, I have such respect for the men and women that operate CNB and the success that they've had, because it's generated opportunity and hope for the Cherokee people, and I'm not going to eliminate jobs. I want to make that clear. I believe in growing that company, not shrinking it. With respect to at-large citizens, I have been out in at-large communities during my 5 years as Secretary of State. I've attended hundreds of meetings and visited with Cherokees at-large to talk about what they want out of the Cherokee Nation, and just as important, what they can contribute to the Cherokee Nation, because I think there's a hunger out there to contribute and to be engaged, and as Secretary of State, I did my level best to do that. So I think as Chief, I will continue to engage with the at-large, to visit the at-large. I will travel the 14 counties and visit the communities and talk to the Cherokee people in the 14 counties, but I'll also talk to the Cherokee people across the country, because I believe that Cherokees are Cherokees no matter where they live. I believe in equal citizenship. My opponent, Councilman Walkingstick, was critical of absentee voting. My goodness, that's how at-large people vote, and I will always protect that right. He said that it'll only travel in the 5 counties. Well, look, I understand that the Cherokee Nation is 14 counties wide, and I understand that Cherokees are all over the country. So I think we need to provide additional opportunity for them to learn our culture, to learn our language, to teach our history to their children, and to engage with the Cherokee Nation, and to always feel connected. And as Chief, that'll be part of my job and part of my mission.
All right, Mr. Lay, you have the floor for 90 seconds, and we're dealing with at-large.
And of course, at-large Cherokee citizens are still Cherokee. They didn't give up that right when they left Oklahoma. And so my wife and I have family that live at large. They started out in Oklahoma. They started out in the Cherokee Nation as we know it today. And so I will never reduce rights or of services to at-large that we're able to do now. And I know we're kind of limited on the services we can give them, but we're not limited on information. We're not limited to take the culture to them. We're not limited to give them ideas where they might find health care where they live. I know my wife's aunt found a small tribe out in Oregon that had good health care for her because she is a native citizen. Not their tribe, our tribe, but they were able to give her the clinic facility. And if we just do those kinds of things, if nothing else, to help our at-large citizens, a lot of them started out in the Cherokee Nation. They want to learn more about what we're doing. They want to be connected, as Chuck said. And I will never take away absentee voting rights. That's how I vote, by the way, absentee. And so we need to make sure that we never lose our at-large citizens. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, we're coming to the end here, so we're going to ask one more question. I want to remind everyone down the line who's watching us live on our Facebook, along on Channel 2's website and all of our websites, that we might go a little bit long. I want our master control operators to know that we might go a minute or so long, and that's perfectly fine. So for our last question tonight, we'll turn to Brandon, and then after that, we'll go to our closing statements. Mr. Hoskins, you have the question on this one. So Brandon?
Do you believe a tribe has a right to assert jurisdiction over non-tribal entities or individuals who engage in business and governmental activities with the tribe?
I absolutely do, and that's an important part of sovereignty, is our ability to hold people accountable and entities accountable that come into the Cherokee Nation and enjoy the benefit of doing business in the Cherokee Nation or engaging in other activities. The case before the United States Supreme Court, Dollar General, that was an important case. That was a victory for Indian country, and as Chief of the Cherokee Nation, I will protect that right. As Chief of the Cherokee Nation, my approach will be clear. If you come into the Cherokee Nation to do business, if you come into the Cherokee Nation to engage in our political process, whether you're non-Indian or not, you're going to abide by the laws of the Cherokee Nation. The Cherokee Nation is a sovereign nation. We have the ability to regulate, to legislate, and to control what happens in the Cherokee Nation to protect the Cherokee people. That includes in our elections, by the way, and at the top of the debate, there was a question about Citizens United. There is an example when outside non-Indian entities try to pour money into this race to influence it, they ought to be held accountable under Cherokee law. If businesses come in here and harm our people, they ought to be held accountable under Cherokee law, including the opioid industry. I'll protect the Cherokee people, and I'll use our sovereignty to do it.
Mr. Lay, you now have the floor for 90 seconds.
Yes, sir, and the answer is yes, absolutely. It is part of our sovereignty. We are a sovereign nation. We are a federally recognized tribe. We have essentially a 14-county jurisdiction, and that it's ours and ours alone. And we defend that. As councilman, I've defended it. As chief, I'll defend it. And any entity that comes into our jurisdiction to do business must come under our sovereign rules and laws of the nation. Simple as that. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Walkingstick, you have the floor for the last time on the question.
All right, thank you. Yes, sovereignty is a big strength of ours, and having different entities coming into the heart of the Cherokee Nation do business, they need to be held accountable to our laws and regulations. You know, Senator Onaway once said that you're either sitting on your sovereignty or exercising your sovereignty, and I think as the Chief of the Cherokee Nation, we need to continually exercise our sovereignty, especially as the Chief of the Cherokee Nation, to hold outside entities accountable to our laws. But you know, it's interesting with the Murphy case coming down to increase that jurisdictional powers. That's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But again, I believe that being Cherokee is great, and I'm proud of our ancestors, and we all stand on the shoulders of our ancestors to get us where we are today, so that we do have sovereignty. And there's many giants that came before us that were leaders in the Cherokee Nation that I look up to, and I believe that as Chief of the Cherokee Nation, I've watched many of these leaders throughout time, and I've seen some good things, and I want to take some of those traits and lead the Cherokee Nation. We're done.
All right. Well, we've come to the end of our forum tonight. We're going to go on into closing statements. Each of you will have 2 minutes for closing. We'll start with Mr. David Walkingstick. Sir, the floor is yours.
I'm the number 3 guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, you're the third guy to start on the closing statements. You get it first.
Okay, all right. My name's David Walkingstick, and it's been an honor to be here on this debate to discuss some big issues coming in the heart of the Cherokee Nation. You know, you're going to hear leaders throughout this race that's running for chief that's going to talk about I did this, I did that, and how qualified I did this, I did that. And so as a Christian, I believe in servant leadership, and I believe in shared leadership. And I believe that we're all in this together, and there is no I. And the council, the chief, the constituents within the Cherokee Nation, we all need to be working together. But one of the biggest struggles I have is, again, bringing honesty and integrity into the heart of the Cherokee Nation, into our government. As I visit with elders throughout 14 counties, they talk about our tribe losing their identity and that we've turned to a corporation and that we measure our wealth off of a $2.5 billion economic impact that you read on the front page of the Toss of the World. But when you go into these rural areas, you see our Cherokees and our elders living in dilapidated homes. We see contract health referrals being denied. And we haven't made it yet. And I know the newspapers and persona is and all the buildings that we built, the casinos, that we've made it. But we still have a long ways to go. The measurement of success in Cherokee Nation is how we're taking care of our Cherokee people. And I'm a Cherokee First chief. And I believe that we need to give Cherokee Nation back to the Cherokee people. And as Chief of Cherokee Nation, I will promise you and assure you that I will be in the heartland, the grassroots within our rural communities to hearing what the needs are of our Cherokee people. And I will have an open door policy that you guys can come into the Cherokee Nation and visit with Chief Walkingstick. So thank you again. We're done.
Mr. Hoskin, 2 minutes, sir.
Wadeau to Rogers State University for hosting this forum. It is important. I'm so pleased that so many Cherokees are watching this across the 14 counties and across the country, and those in our audience. I want to thank my wife for being here and being my partner through this whole journey of public service and through this campaign. This is a critical time for the Cherokee people, and this is an important election. The issue in this campaign is who has the vision to carry our nation forward, to build a team to create the most opportunity in the years ahead, and who has the experience to do that. And I'm asking the people to look, the Cherokee people, to look at our record, to look at our vision for the Cherokee people and decide who's best to lead us going forward. I'm proud of my record of public service. That is true. I'm proud of my time on the council. I'm proud of my time as Secretary of State. I'm proud that I am a Cherokee father and husband raising a family in Cherokee communities, because to the Cherokee people, they know that we have to look generations ahead, generations ahead. Now we have more work to do to achieve the dreams that the Cherokee people have and to achieve the expectations that they have. The Cherokee people expect us to have a healthcare system that's better than it is today. We can't rest on our laurels and be glad that we've put so much into healthcare. They expect more and they deserve more. They expect us to have their backs when it comes to the economy, making sure that they have opportunities for education and job training, making sure their communities are strong so their children can stay in their communities and keep them strong for generations to come. We have a lot of work to do on so many issues, and I ask the Cherokee people to look at experience, look at vision, look at proven leadership, and I respectfully ask for their vote. To the Cherokee people, I say, we always talk about building a better Cherokee Nation for the next 7 generations. But it starts with this generation, and I ask them for their confidence in me to lead us going forward. Wadeau.
Mr. Lay, you have the last for the floor for 2 minutes, sir.
Yes, sir. And my name is Dick Lay, and I'm running for Principal Chief. Please remember that on your ballot. Other than my family and my grandson and my faith, Christian faith, the biggest and brightest thing I've ever done in my life is serving the Cherokee. This has been an honor, and I don't care what happens from here on out. I mean, I've served, and I've served as well as I could. And those who know me and who are from my district know what we've accomplished. And I don't run around saying I did it. I say we did it. It took us all. It took the administration, the council, the people who said, we need this, we need that. And so I'd like to say this, though. I've served with 5 different healthcare executive directors in 8 years. And in my opinion, that's not success. When you vote for me for chief, we're going to have a healthcare system, and we're going to bring back the right person for that job to get that job done in our healthcare facilities, and we're going to hire the docs, and we're going to reduce the wait times, And this is what Cherokee people are asking me. They're not asking me how much the CMB made. CMB made, you know, overall we're a $2.5 billion industry, I guess you say it. And what we're not making money just to make money, we're making money to serve our people. And always remember that. Whether it's CMB or federal dollars, we serve our people with that funding. That's what we're supposed to be doing, and that's what I intend to do as chief, and that's what I will do as chief. Please vote for me. Thank you.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of tonight's forum. You all did a very good job tonight, so thank you. Thank you for being on the campus of Rogers State University. Thank you for being here in our studios of RSU Public Television. We are proud to be partners of the Cherokee Nation. Well, our time has come, and tonight is it for the forum. I want to say thank you to each of our candidates, David Walkingstick, Chuck Hoskin Jr., and Dick Lay, for their participation in tonight's forum, and to our panelists, Brandon Scott with the Cherokee Pheonix and Graham Brewer with the High Country News. So thank you, gentlemen, for being here and asking the questions. But mostly I want to say thank you to you, our viewers. None of this is possible without you. Thank you for watching. My name is Royal Aills. I'm the General Manager of RSU Public Television. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.